From Carr, Riggs, and Ingram, this is It Figures, the CRI podcast, an accounting, advisory, and industry-focused podcast for business and organization leaders, entrepreneurs, and anyone who is looking to go beyond the status quo.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for another episode of It Figures, a CRI podcast. My name is Sandy Guy, and I'm excited to host another very interesting dialogue on a trending topic. I don't know about y'all, but for me, I'm getting really tired of the term work-life balance. I feel like we've been using that term for, 20, 30 years. It seems like forever. And I don't know about y'all, but I haven't achieved balance. And I'm starting to think that balance isn't even something that you can achieve. I know for me, it always feels like as I'm trying to lean left and balance more towards my personal life, that then my professional life gets out of balance and then vice versa. And it's always a balancing act. And when I start sort of easing out of one to ease into another, I start to feel guilty as well. And then add to all of that, given the new dynamics of the workplace, it just really seems more like we're integrating our personal and professional lives. I've worked remote full-time since 2015, and to work in your home, integrating your personal and professional life takes on a whole new meaning. So what I wanted to do today is have a discussion and really explore, is balance even really a thing? And is it really more integration that we're looking at between these two worlds that seem to have overlapped or collapsed on each other, it seems like some days. And as we're all trying to have it all, what is have it all? Especially if you're a female, that comes up sometimes. But so I thought, you know what? Who could I talk to that it would be a really good discussion with? And I decided I wanted to choose somebody who I kind of look up to from the outside looking in. It seems like she's balancing it all. So it's my pleasure to introduce my guest, Kendra LaFleur. Kendra, thank you for balancing some time into your day to do this with me today. I appreciate that. But if you would take a second, introduce yourself, who you are, where you are, and maybe some aspects of your life that you seem to be balancing, if you have kids, clients, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sandy. I always love connecting with you. So my name is Kendra LaFleur. I am a senior manager out of the Atlanta practice. I am a mother of three children and a dog mom.
You are a dog mom, Team
Yeah,
Tyson
that's
over
right.
here.
Yeah, my baby Tyson. He is a Amstaff Terrier. He's growing on me.
He's a
He's growing
COVID
on me.
puppy. It's been 2 years.
He
Tyson's a
is. That's
COVID
right.
puppy.
That's right. He's growing on me. I'm married. Been married for 13 years. Shout out to my husband Chris.
Woohoo!
And I am the board treasurer for Girls on the Run.
Nice.
Love, love, love that organization. So I'm the board treasurer for that. I am on the young membership committee for the AICPA. Love that. And then I'm also the board treasurer for the women's department at my church out of Beaufort, Georgia. So a few different things.
I'm going to call you out because you left out for me something I think is a really big deal, and it's about CRI. What do you chair at CRI that you didn't even just mention?
Yes. I am duh, Kendra. I am the chairman or chairwoman of our ERG for Black and African Americans, so balance. So I am the chairman and one of the founders of that
Definitely
ERG.
one of the
Yeah.
founders. And I think that kind of actually leads nicely into the conversation because when I think I really started to look up to you and respect you for everything you keep juggling in the air at one time was, May, June of 2020 when you and I felt like I was on the phone with you every day. And we were talking about, God, we've got to get this ERG started. And what
Yeah.
would that look like? And what would it, and I think you probably spent more time with me than billing clients. Don't worry, Kelly Bollinger, she billed clients. But like it was
True
just
story.
anytime I called you and said, "Hey, do you have some time?" and you made time, and it was great. And I know a lot of your personal and professional commitments. So I really appreciated the amount of time you gave to me for that. But so let's talk about it. So, I don't think there's such a thing as balance. Like, what do you think about the term work life balance? Do you think balance is something you can achieve, or is it more that integration?
That it's funny that you asked that because that's probably one of the most common questions that I get is, Kendra, how do you balance everything? Like, how many hours do you actually have in your day, Kendra? Because you do
Right.
a lot. But I don't think that it's a question of how do I do it. I think it's just a testament that it can be done. And so the way that I balance my schedule looks completely different than maybe how my husband does his or how my coworker does hers. I think everybody's balance just looks a little bit different. The only commonality that we all have is the 24 hours. And so, in order to get everything done, you got to split that time. It's just 24 hours. So you might spend, 8 hours sleeping. Maybe you're one of those people who has to sleep for 8 hours or you can't function. So then you got 16 left. How you gonna make it? But nothing is created equal. I feel like in order for it to work, you have to kind of pull from one area in order to give to the other. So it sounds terrible, but I don't necessarily think that it's just a perfect balance. I think that you just kind of figure out how it all can work together, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And I think I love how you said, I think it can be done. I think it can be done, but that doesn't mean, like, one of the things when we do our conversations that count, which is sort of the equivalent of an internal firm podcast, I guess you could say, I always ask people, what would you do if you had more time? And kind of because I'm curious to hear what they would do. But for me, I'm like, God, what's it like to have more time? I feel like by the time my head hits the pillow at night, I'm still like 3, 4 hours short of things I needed to do. But when I think about early in your career, so when you and I first met, when I joined CRI, I think you were a first year senior. You had just passed the exam, I think, and had a child. And I remember thinking, how do you have a, and I want to say it was your second child. How do you have a child, study for the exam, pass it? So at that point in your life, you're still, well, you're young now, but you're young, and it's like, okay, I want to go with my friends, and me and my husband were gonna go out and do this and this and this. How did you accomplish that early in your career? Working hardcore in Atlanta, studying for the exam. So how did you do that?
I think I'm a firm believer, rather, in that we make time for the things that are important to us. And so at that time in my life, it was like I wanted to pass the exam. Like I wanted to pass that exam. And it was so hard for me. I know some people, they can just do it and just be done with it. But it was such a journey for me. I was pregnant as I was studying. So like I'm like throwing up and like trying to study. I'm like, hungry, but I can't eat. It's just so hard for me. But it was important to me. And so I just had to figure it out. And so I'm a firm believer, if you're passionate about something or you want it, you figure it out. You just figure it out.
So I'm curious. I do feel guilty when, so if I'm working and there's a project I want to have done, and I'm like, all right, I am not logging off. I am not going to bed till I'm done. I want to get this project done, closed. It's important to me. And if I have a girlfriend text me or my husband text me, hey, let's go grab some dinner, or, you want to go do this or that, and I feel guilty. So both are equally important to me. So I'm like, I feel guilty. I told them no last time they wanted to go do something. But then if I don't do the work thing, I feel guilty. I'm like, God, I did promise Kendra I'd have, the charter reviewed and back to her by this point. Do you ever experience guilt? And if so, how do you manage that?
100%. 100%. My sweet husband. So like he's kind of been on this journey with me. But then so I'm just laser focused with work. I want to do a good job. I want to, this path to partner, and I'm just putting in the work to get to that point. I'm studying for the exam. I've got kids. I'm now want to volunteer. My husband's like, Kendra, okay, what about me? Right? My sweet husband. He's the best. But then like for example, when I was studying for the exam, like I was adamant about like no vacation. I can't vacation because I won't have peace of mind. I just want to study. If I'm laying on the beach somewhere, I'm just gonna be thinking about the exam. So like let me just do that. And then my husband, it had been, I don't know, maybe a year or so, and I was like, I think I had maybe one more part, something like that. And my husband was like, Kendra, we need to go away. Like, I know that it's important to you, but it's important to me that we have this time together, just kind of going through that whole thing. And then I felt so bad. And then I felt you would think that the woman would do something like that, but he was just like, I need that time, and then it'd be good for you. And it was good. But it was one of those things where I was so caught up in trying to get this part done. I had completely just dropped the ball with stuff in my marriage. And so kind of he just really helped me figure out, okay, well, instead of doing a week vacation, let's just do 4 days, 3 nights. Like, I will be good with that. Let's compromise. So my journey is a lot about compromising and knowing that I can't give 100% of everything to everyone. I can't do it. And I'm okay with that. It was hard initially, but I've gotten comfortable with saying no and saying, well, I can do it, but I need a month to kind of get to
Yeah.
that point, to go to dinner with you or whatever it is.
But I think that's a really interesting point because I feel like, especially, starting in the summer of 2020, when, in the mornings that everybody would get up and you had your routine. I think the podcast that you and I did with Max talked about this a little bit, that you had your routine that, okay, my job was to get up and walk the dogs, and your job was to get the kids fed, and then I drop them off at school on my way to my office and you go to your office. But everybody kind of had this routine. And then summer 2020 hit and everybody's in lockdown and everybody's at home. So okay, the dynamic of going and dropping off isn't there, but then there's other things to do, and then everybody kind of gets pulled into different patterns. And if that communication, and I love the word kind of negotiation, I hate to say compromise because compromise makes you feel like somebody's giving up something, but then that negotiation of how do we work together to accomplish something. I think that when you're trying to integrate your personal and your professional pursuits, I do think it's a negotiation. I think that even with me, if I'm thinking about, I don't have a fenced in yard, so the dogs can. I do like to walk them, but if I can't, I've got a fenced in yard. And I don't have kids, but sometimes there's something that I absolutely want to commit to and do, whether it's going to see my niece who's in the middle of sorority rush at Alabama. So yes, hashtag Bama Rush Talk if y'all are watching.
Yeah, that's
But
exciting.
so it's like, okay, well, first, can I call the Birmingham office and see if there's any on-campus recruiting events that they need an extra hand to? Because I'm happy to go down and help out. But it's talking about if somebody's like, hey, can you facilitate or do a training on this date? I can say no. I tried this year. I haven't taken a full week's vacation, and I can't tell you how long. And so I thought, okay, this summer I want to try to take a week, even if it's just sitting at the beach and not doing anything. And one of the offices called, and we were talking about some of their summer training plans. And they said, okay, can you do this summer training, during this week? And it was the week of 4th of July. And that people pleaser in Sandy Guy just about uttered, yeah, sure. What, my calendar's wide open at the moment. What day do you want? And then I stopped and I was like, no, I'm trying. So I didn't have to say no because I'm trying to take PTO. I just responded and said, actually, that won't work. Can we choose another time? And she was like, oh, absolutely, of course. And we picked another time. But that people pleaser in me who felt guilty to say no, not right now. I'm like, why would I feel guilty? And I told the partner, shout out Michelle Landrum in Houston. I told her after, I said, gosh, I was trying to take PTO. Why did I feel bad? And we had a whole conversation around that. She's like, it didn't matter. I was just throwing that out because I thought it'd be a good day. So I do think it's a negotiation if you don't let your guilt and your pride and your people pleaserness, if you're like Sandy Guy, get in the way. It is kind of hard. And even, with my husband, when he talks about, hey, why don't we take off early on Friday and go drive to Pinehurst and play a round of golf? And if I'm like, God, I tell you what, I can't do it Friday, but I bet I can move some things around on my schedule. What if we go Saturday and then maybe play around Monday? Because I have a window of time on Monday. So I do think it's important. I do think it helps if you're somebody who has a nice village to help them. And it sounds like you have a pretty nice village around you, especially in your husband and friends and things of that nature. But so oftentimes I even think about technology. So when I was starting out my career, unlike you, Kendra, gosh, I'm going to be so old. We didn't have cell phones. I mean, cell phones were around, but it was like, well, we were past bag phones when I graduated college, but we were like maybe a year past bag phones. But, so it wasn't like,
No, go ahead. Go
you
ahead.
don't know what a bag phone is? Girl, I need to. Do you really not know what a bag phone is? Oh, I'm so old. I'll call you after and I'll show you what a bag phone is. So, yeah, I'll call you after. Oh God, I feel so old. So like cell phones were just kind of coming out when I graduated college. And I mean, we
A
had
bag? Did you say a
computers
bag
and
phone?
like the internet was
I
just kind of coming out
can't say that I
around
know
that
what that
time.
is.
So when work was done at the end of the
Don't.
day, I could log off. I wasn't taking a laptop home.
I'll Google it.
I left work 5 or 6 o'clock at night. On weekends, I would log off, go home. There was no laptop in my car. I mean, there might have been some paperwork or something, but for the most part on the weekend, you weren't really getting calls from the office. You weren't getting emails. You weren't getting texts. You weren't getting anything. And I often now think back because my life is 24/7. I'll get texts, emails, and I don't mind. I check them. Lord knows you and I have done this. I check them, I respond to them. But I'm like, God, I just feel like I had so much more time when I was younger. And I often wonder, is it because the technology wasn't there? However, we are a lot more productive because of the technology. So I can do something, I can sit there and have a video call with you on a weekend if you wanted one, because both of us maybe wanted to take Monday off and we're like, okay, let's just knock it out Saturday morning and then we'll move on and won't have to do it Friday. So I don't know. What do you think? Do you think technology is a friend or a foe when you're trying to integrate
I think
personal
it's
and professional?
both. I think if anybody in their right mind would have to say it's a blessing and a curse. Like it's just a little bit of both because you're right, you do get that benefit because it does allow you to be more flexible. It allows you to log in at night from the comfort of your own home if you want to attend your kids event or if you want to attend a bridal shower or whatever it is, maybe a doctor's appointment, what have you. It does give you that flexibility to log in, but at the same time, you always feel like you have to be connected. And so that's kind of like to your demise. And I'm the same way, Sandy. Like I always say, like, I'm gonna just unplug, but I never for real unplug. I just don't.
I have to, I'm going to call you out on the podcast. So you just got back from a wonderful vacation to Mexico with your husband. And I know about a week or so before you were going, we were talking about something you were working on. And you're like, okay, I'm going to Mexico and I'm trying to get everything done. And I'm like, oh my God, don't check in. And I'm thinking, okay, hopefully wherever she's staying doesn't have like cell or internet service, so she doesn't check in. And then when I got that text from you while you were on vacation, I almost wanted to go, oh my God, put your phone down. But granted, that was kind of more personal than work.
Yeah.
But so I'm curious. So and your husband specifically said, this is our vacation, no kids, and we're going to go be grown-ups
Hmm.
and go have grown-up vacation. So what was that like while you were on vacation?
It was so hard. It was so hard for me. It really was. Like I would it's so bad. I feel like I'm telling on myself and my husband's gonna hear it and he's gonna be mad. But like I would text people on my team like, hey, is everything good? Like did anything blow up? Like I'm not checking my
And
email.
you
So I
have
didn't lie to
such
my
a
husband, but
competent
I
team. You have an amazing, competent team.
I know, but I just if they need me, like I'm here. I know. I'm so strange. I don't know. But it was good because I really didn't check my email and I didn't check my Teams. And so it was nice, but it was just my brain was still working like something is due on Friday. This report is supposed to go out on Friday. Like, do y'all have the management rep letter? Like, did y'all do all and I know that they did because my team is amazing. It's just my mind just keeps thinking and I have my phone and it has access to all the answers are there. I just have to go get them. And I'm like, but let me tell you, that was Monday. But by Friday,
I feel like that was all week. That was just
no,
Monday.
that was just like Monday. But by the time Friday got there, the phone was like in the hotel room. Like it was just, I had to like transit. It was just hard for me to just do a hard cutoff. I couldn't do a cold turkey. But
I'm
as
with
the
you.
week went, then it was more and more like, okay, this is okay. This is okay.
But not the same thing as a vacation, but still the same thing. Like the last couple of years when Apple came out with, you can see your screen time. It's got the little report on there. And I'm like, okay, I want to spend less time on TikTok. TikTok is my adult, like crack meth, whatever you want to call it. They're funny farmers and animals. And again, it's Bama Rush Talk time. But I'm like, okay, I want to be off my phone. And that includes checking for work. And so I started paying attention when I was on it outside of 8 to 5. And one of the things I noticed is that, so I walk the dogs every morning at 5 in the morning. And in the summer, when it gets hot, it's after hours. But in the winter, when it's cooler, we usually go right at 5 and then I come back home and work. And I noticed that when I'm walking the dogs, a lot of times I'm on the phone and I'm like responding to text, responding to whatever, and TikToking sometimes. So I'm like, you know what? I don't need the phone when I go walk the dogs. I do need a flashlight. So instead I'll take my little tiny flashlight because it's dark in the mornings and I'm going to leave my phone at home. So we walk pretty far. So that's about an hour twice a day that I would leave my phone at home. And it is weird the first couple of times that you do it. And it's just my neighborhood. It's not like I'm going to have a flat tire or something. So I have started like, okay, when I go to work upstairs to my home office during the day, what if I leave my phone downstairs? Or what if I leave it somewhere else? Because if I'm working, if somebody wants me, they'll Teams me. But so I've tried to, even in my personal life, how can I turn my phone off or just not even have it with me to where I'm not tempted? It's hard, but it has helped me focus on other things. Because again, people pleaser Sandy wants to, if there's an alert that pops up, hey, you have a Teams message from Kendra, well, I'm going to want to check it and see what Kendra needs. And it could wait. So I don't know. It is interesting, but I think technology does have things that can help us knock it out to enjoy that free time, but it is a habit. It really is. So I'm curious, did your husband struggle any on that? Like, were you both on Monday struggling, or was he like, oh no, we in Mexico, I'm ready to have
Oh, girl, stop. My husband was there like the week before we left. Like, like he was like, let's go. I'm done. I'm no auto reply on. I'm like, you haven't even left yet. Like, so
I
he's
wish
very easy to unplug.
I wish I could be like
Me
that.
too.
So we were talking about how a village can help, especially people who have kids. I see in my neighborhood, the neighborhood Facebook group, now that we're all going back to school, or not we, but the neighborhood kids are going back to school. I'll see moms post, hey, can anybody do the carpool run here? I've got this going on. So it's really cool to see the village help out. But I have to say, I don't know if it's just me. My village doesn't help out. My village makes it problematic. So I work from home again. And there's times my mom might be in town visiting, and it'll be 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I can be on a Zoom, and my mom will just come walk in my home office, sit down, and want to have a conversation. Oh my gosh, and mom, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm so sorry. But I'm like, I'm working. Just because I'm at home doesn't mean you can come in. I have neighbors who will come knock on the door. Hey, I brought you some pesto, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I finally told my mom one day, I said, let me put it to you this way. So if I was still in an office in Uptown Charlotte, would you drive up there, come sit in the office and have this conversation with me? Well, no. Then don't come in my home office because I'm trying to get things done. Like, it's really interesting how people just assume if you're working from home, the interruptions are okay. Do you ever run into that? I know you're very hybrid, but do you ever run into that?
Oh yeah, and I love I love your mom story because that's so my mom. My mom,
I love
she's
her.
yeah, she is just like that. So like I'll say I'm gonna be working remote next week because the client doesn't want us out there, and I just need to head down, just focus. Hit keyword focus. And so my mom, whenever she calls, she FaceTimes. Like it's never even like call like an audio. It's like FaceTime. So I know you don't want nothing for real because you FaceTime. doesn't text, and so she'll call 4 times in a row, so then I'm like, "Okay, hey, mom," and she's like, "Hey, what are y'all cooking for dinner tonight? I just have no idea what to make." And I'm just like, "Mom, you FaceTime me 4 times to ask me something like that?" So she just doesn't get it. So that's my sweet, loving mom. So that's why I love your story because she reminds me of my mom
I
100%.
and and and, and
100%.
and she got back, and she totally understands it now, because whenever I've said to somebody, "Hey, would if I was working in an office in Uptown Charlotte, would you come sit in my office and have this drive all the way uptown and have this conversation?" Well, no. Okay, well,
No,
and
absolutely not.
I finally learned to shut my door, put a do not disturb sign on my door, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it can be challenging. So I'm
That's
curious, because you, as I said at the beginning, I sit back, and from the outside looking in, it looks like, you've got it all together, because in addition to, your kids are fed and dressed and in school, and Tyson hopefully is not bringing in any more dead squirrels, and Tyson's trained
um,
and things are great, and you took a vacation. But so, what's some advice that you're given to your younger staff? I mean, I know you have, for example, Melissa on your team. I don't know how she has time to breathe during the day. She's studying for the exam, she's planning her wedding. Like, what advice do you have for some of the younger folks that are trying to do it all personally and professionally?
I think the biggest advice that I give to the team, not even just my team, but just to like the Atlanta team and CRI team, any team that you might be on, is really just communication. I think that it's so easy to figure out your life to kind of figure out your schedule is if you can communicate. And so, for example, you brought up Melissa. If she's studying for an exam, and let's say her exam is Saturday, she's on my job, come Tuesday, I'm like, "Hey, don't you test on Saturday?" "Yeah, I'm testing Saturday." I'm like, "Well, why don't you take off the rest of the week? The team will divvy up your sections. Whatever we don't finish, when you're done with your exam, then you can get back into it." Like, we just got to kind of figure out a way, because when you're a CPA, we all win. So I think but you have to communicate with people, "Hey, um, my mom is coming in town. Even I need to clean up my house. Like, can I have Friday afternoon?" Like, it's just communicating, because then we can help. But when you're just kind of like this, flying solo, like under the radar, don't talk, it's just harder to. So I think when your team knows what you kind of have, and I'm not saying divulge all the information, but like the exam is a big deal. Like, it's great for you to have those full days to study. Or if you're, maybe you're the one throwing a bridal shower. I know your Alex on your team is getting married. If I'm throwing her a shower, like, "Hey, can I have these days? This is how I can make up the time." It's just like collaborating, communicating. I think that's like the two best pieces of advice.
But and I think part of that communicating that's key is also understanding the different styles and ways people work. So you mentioned Alex. And the first week or two that Alex and I started working together, we were talking about styles. And I said, listen, I said, I'm somebody that I'm usually on the phone the entire day. So before I start working in the mornings, and then after 5, that's when I do all my admin type stuff. That's when I'm following up on emails. That's when, if I need to, type any documents or anything like that, like all the administrative things I need to do are usually, it could be late at night, but I don't feel like that's imposing on my time. It could just be, what, I had a full day, and it's a beautiful day out, and I wanted to go walk. So I'll work on that document later tonight. Or to your point, because I know you love working out, I'll go work out and then do that. And Alex, when we were having that conversation, she does have a lot going on, planning for her wedding too. But I know that she's somebody that her after hours are really important to her. She's getting this done, and so she is definitely a 8 to 5 heads down person. So I want to be respectful of her after hours, and I don't want to. I said, look, if you see an email from me at night, I have zero expectation you're reading that and responding to that. I'm just doing it because tomorrow, by the time you log on, I'm probably on my second webinar and I'm not going to have time to do it.
Right.
But I think it's understanding the ways people like to work and when they want to work. I don't assume that if I'm going to work late that Alex wants to, will. Sometimes she'll tell me, "Oh, no, no, Artie's out of town. Happy to help you out. I'm with you. I'd rather knock it out and do it." And I think that communication and understanding what's important to somebody, what's important about their schedule. It could be they have a partner who, and I think this applies to Melissa, that her fiance, he's in the service. So like he'll
Right.
be quote unquote home for a stretch, but then away for a stretch. So how she would want to balance work and personal life is going to be different when he's quote unquote home versus when he's away. And unless you're having those communications and embracing those different expectations, it's definitely hard to have balance if somebody doesn't want to support you integrating
A
those two.
110% agree with you. 110% agree with you because everybody's different, like I am worthless at night. Like I can't do any critical thinking at night. I can't analyze anything at night. Like I'm a morning person. Like
Me
when
too.
I wake up very early. I won't say how early, but when I
I've
wake up
seen your
early,
emails. I know how early you get.
exactly, like, I just fire them off because it's quiet, I just feel like I'm at peace, like, no one's looking for me, and so I get all my critical thinking done at that time. But when I'm leaving review notes, I don't expect my team to come, you know what I mean, to come in and clear the right away or, respond to me. Just like what you said, I think everybody is different. I have Chicago on my team, and she's a night owl, and I am not a night owl, so, we have polar opposite type schedules, but we communicate often, frequently, we collaborate, and it just works.
Listen, you send me an email or a text at 10 o'clock. I don't even care if you're my girlfriends in the group chat. I'm probably not seeing it at 10 o'clock on a school night because girls in the bed with the phone on vibrate trying to go to sleep, unless I'm scrolling on TikTok still. But no, I'm 100%. So I'm curious, are there any, whether it's with you personally or you and your husband or at work, are there any things that are, I'll say, sacred or sort of deal breakers? Like, I hold this space or this time or this, like I know you like to work out. So I hold my 5 a.m. gym time sacred. Like, is there, like Max Gym, when we were coordinating the podcast that we did, he said, look, I picked my daughter up from school. It's at 3 o'clock. I'm happy to do anything before or after this window, but that's my jam. Picking up my daughter from school is my jam. Do you have any deal breakers like that? Or
I do, and let me just rephrase, you said I like working out. I don't like working out. I do
okay.
it because I have to. Because I enjoy eating. That's what I like
Girl,
to do. I like to eat. Like that's my hobby.
you like the
So in
chocolates, I
order to
know.
fulfill my hobby and
Yep.
not just like completely, blow up. And I'm only 5'2", so there's only so many places the weight can
And if
kind of go.
y'all could see Kendra, she is so fit, it is not even funny. It's not even funny.
So yeah, so I work out because I am obligated to do so.
There you go.
But yeah, that actually is one of my things. So I'll go, but I'm more flexible. It's sacred to me, yes, in that I have to get a workout in. But I'm flexible in that, if I go at 4 a.m. or if I go at 4 p.m., as long as I can get that, hour 15 in 4 or 5 times a week, I'm good. I just have to, my body deserves that time. My heart deserves that time. My mental health deserves that time. And so I do it. I'm obligated to it. I have to do it at least at some point during the day. And then things with my children. My oldest is already in fourth grade, and
Wow.
it's crazy to me. And so I only have a few, 9 more years, and she's like out of the house, and that's just makes me sad. So I try to me and my husband we polar opposite. He's like high five, and I'm like, he's
He's the
doing
fun
little
dad.
dance. He's excited. But so things with my children, I try to prioritize the things that are important to them, like their field day. Like my middle son Kendrick, he is adamant about field day. He's like, Mom, you just need to be at field day with all the other moms, and I want you to cheer and
Oh,
scream for me. Like that's important to him. So those things I hold sacred. So it's not like I have a certain thing every day that I have to do, but there's just moments that I have to, fulfill for the sake of my kids.
yeah, I get that. I think for me and my husband, so pre-pandemic, we both traveled a lot for our jobs, and we just somehow got to this place where Sundays were sacred, Sunday dinner. So we had this sort of rule of no travel on Sunday. You could be on, Lord knows, I have been on incredibly early flights on Monday mornings, but it's like, you know what? Unless you can avoid it, no travel on Sunday. We eat dinner in for two people who eat out all the time. But Sunday's the night we cook, we sit in, we whatever, and then because once the week starts, we're both going in different directions. And it never really was problematic if somebody called and said, "Hey, we have a meeting. It's going to start at noon." And a lot of people like, "Oh, I'll fly in the night before." I'm like, I don't want to travel on Sunday night. That's sacred. So I'll get on the 5 a.m. flight out and still get there in time for the meeting. There's been a small handful of times where I've had to fly out on a Sunday, but it's been okay. Well, I'll stay and we'll have dinner and then fly out after. So I think what's important, and where I see people struggle a lot, is they don't identify those things that are important to them. Like you understand the importance of your time and your workout, and that's for that's kind of that put your mask on yourself before you put it on other people kind of thing. That self-care, self-love. I think where people tend to struggle is they haven't identified those things that are important to them personally, but to their soul, that make them a better person if they honor that commitment. And then tell people, whether it's, hey, as long as I can work out during the day, I'm good, or I just no travel on a Sunday, or whatever it is. I think that makes it easier. And the more you're willing to speak up about it, it's rare when somebody says no. I mean, if there's a lead time, and honestly,
Right.
it's rare for me. So, I think a lot about how leaders can make this so much easier, not just on their team and retain talent. I've done a podcast on retaining talent. We've talked nonstop about retaining talent. It's a market where you want to retain talent and make sure they thrive, but it also makes it easier on you as a leader in the work you have done. If you have these open conversations and you have some flexibility to make sure that they're integrating both. But so when you look around and consider your peers, other senior managers, rising partners, and leaders in the firm, any advice you would have for them if they're struggling in that regard?
Yeah, I think sometimes we forget that everybody has a personal life, right? We're not the exception. I'm not the exception. There are plenty of people in this world that have children, or they're single, or maybe you're taking care of your mom or grandmother. Like, everybody has a story, right? Everybody has something going on. Everybody needs a little bit more time. Everybody's trying to figure it out. I think that if we all just, I hate to say it, sounds so cheesy, but if we all just show a little compassion, a little bit of grace, you know what I mean? It'll just go a long way. It's just such a powerful thing to just be understanding, to be empathetic, just to kind of realize that everybody's got something else going on. So if somebody is, maybe not performing their best in a work paper, or something happened, normally they're good, and you're like, I don't know what happened. Well, what else is going on? Just kind of, you just don't know the whole story. So just to kind of realize that everybody has a story. And I know for me, I want to be a partner at some point. And so when I feel overwhelmed, or I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to manage my schedule. I'm looking at my list and I'm like, I don't know how this list is going to get done. But I know that to whom much is given, much is required. So, like, I know that it takes hard work. I know that it's sometimes you just don't get it all right. And it's okay. I just do the best that I can. I put forth 100% of my effort, and that's just the best that I can do. And so that's kind of the way that I live my life. And so when people ask me that, I'm just like, I'm just doing my I'm just doing my best. I need a little
Just keep
grace.
swimming. Just keep
Yeah, just keep
swimming.
swimming. I need a little grace. I give a little grace, and that's just kind of my motto.
But it's interesting that you say that. And heavens, we could do a whole other podcast on what I'm about to say, because I think you and I have had an hour-long phone conversation about this very topic. But typically, your highest performers are the least likely to complain. And so when you aren't just reaching out, like one thing, Kendra, you're so good about, you'll walk by and just ask somebody, hey, what's going on? I haven't seen you for a while. How's wedding planning? How are things going? No, seriously, how are things going? Higher performers tend to not come and say, I'm drowning. I'm trying to study for the exam and plan a wedding, whatever it is. They tend to not do that. They tend to put their head down. And I think one of the most important things that leaders can do, you can't be empathetic and you can't be supportive if you don't know what you need to be empathetic and supportive of. And so something just as simple as poking your head in and saying, hey, how you doing? Because I'll call you out on this podcast. Kendra, you and I have had a conversation where you and I have been talking, and I'm like, Kendra, you're not complaining. You need to be vocal about that. And you're like, no, we'll figure it out. And I'm like, put
Yeah.
yourself in that leader's shoes. That
She ain't
leader would
lying,
want
y'all.
to
She really
know.
has.
I'm
You have
sorry, I'm
called
calling
me
you out
out.
on the
Yeah, you have. You are
podcast.
like you for real. That really happened.
But it's your supervisor, your leader, your Kendra, your whoever you are. They can't solve a challenge that you aren't at least letting them know you have. And so, but prideful Sandy, who does not like that. Hey, I'm a middle child. I am a woman and I am prideful. I'm not about to go, I can't or I need help. That is not in my vocabulary. But it's as simple as just sticking your head in somebody's office or calling them on the phone and saying, hey, I was just thinking about you the other day. Hey, how's it going? How you doing? How's wedding planning coming along? How's I know you're playing in the flag football league. How's that coming? Or even if you don't know anything about them, just check in and go, man, life's crazy. How's it going for you? And just let them talk about them. And you'll hear those things and you'll learn where they're struggling and can say, well, hey, dude, you don't have to drive into the office to do this. I don't care if you do that at home, or you don't even have to do that. Why are you doing that? Go. We have somebody else who can do that. So I do think that's important. I will say it's something that you do very authentically and naturally, and I very much appreciate. And I always joke, if I could get a little drop of Kendra and some people to just stop in and ask people how
You're
they're
so
doing.
kind.
Listen, I'm just as guilty. You'll call me about something, and 3 hours later, I hang up the phone and go, man, I took 2.5 hours of her time, and she just had one question. I feel terrible. So instead, I just light up your teams with a bunch of gifts that I think are funny.
I'm here for it though.
Yeah, I'm here for it. Anyway, so as we start winding down, I do want to twofold both give a shout out to and solicit any advice for um, people in your village or spouses. So, you've talked about how incredibly supportive your husband is, which includes keeping you honest and saying, log off. No. Supportive isn't saying, yeah, keep working. I'm going to go lay on the beach and come see me when you're done. Supportive is saying, no, you need to log off. So, any advice or anything to people who want to be supportive of their partner, spouse, significant other, parent, anything like that?
Um, that's a
Maybe
really
we
good.
should call your husband and he would have a
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a real. I'm trying to think of what he would say. That's a really good question, Sandy. I think that well, for one, and I don't know if this will answer your question directly, but for one, I try to surround myself with people that I know have my interests at heart and have my back. And so I think for people who are trying to support someone, who are trying to be that for someone else, I think it's just like what you said, like popping your head in, getting to know what they have going on personally. It's such an easy thing to do, and people will just word vomit. They just will. Hey, how's it going? Oh my gosh, I have this plumbing issue. I'm trying to hurry get this done. They're gonna be there at 3, but I know traffic. It's like, okay, well, why don't you just go home at lunch? Or why did you come in? Just kind of having that open dialogue. Um, but the hard part is the authenticity. It's just being genuine about it. And people are typically pretty good at reading when something is genuine or not. So I think just trying to build those relationships and forge those relationships um, so that people trust you with their conversation, so you kind of know what they have going on. Um, Everybody is just so swamped right now, myself included. Like, we all just have so much going on. Nobody's excluded. I haven't talked to a single person, and not just in accounting, in any industry line that's like, oh yeah, work is great. Work is we're just coasting through this thing. Everybody's like, oh my God, 3 people quit, or oh, the CFO is gone, or oh, I don't have a teacher. My teacher just resigned. There's just so much going on. And so I think that we all just have to be there for each other and know that it's growing pains. It hurts, but it's just seasonal, right? In due
I
season.
hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so. And I hope the one thing that comes out of all this is that to use a term you said a few minutes ago, that we all learn to come back to showing each other some grace and being supportive of one another. And with that, I'm going to start wrapping it up because you have been so generous with your time because you come back from vacation. I give you no lead time. And I'm like, okay, she's real busy. Let me be a big hypocrite and go, hey, I want to do a podcast on balance. Can you be on a podcast in a couple of days with me? So I really appreciate that. But, you said something a moment ago that was so perfect. And you were talking about surround yourself with people who have your back. And I will say this, I do believe that you're somebody around me that has my back, and I absolutely have yours, and the mutual support that we have for one another to make sure we achieve our personal goals, and we have two very different career paths that we're on, but our shared goal of how we want to advance CRI, and then also support each other in our personal pursuits as well. And then you also said trust with conversation. And I knew when I'm like, I want to have this conversation, I want to call her because I can trust her in having an open conversation. And Lord knows, I always say a car chat because some of the longest calls you and I have had have been when I've been in my car.
That is so true.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Like I was driving back from a meeting in Greensboro one day, and like you were my conversation the whole way back.
That is so true.
But I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate you. I know you're busy, especially coming off of being on vacation and then also having to be out of town and with no lead time. So I really appreciate your generosity and authenticity and doing that. You are always a joy to partner with. And I really appreciate that. And so with that, I hope everybody thinks about your own integration, how you're integrating your work and professional life and those around you. And hopefully Kendra and I have given you some tips and maybe a laugh here or there to help you do that. So thank you for joining us today.
If you want more CRI insights or are interested in learning about our firm, please visit our website at cricpa.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of It Figures, the CRI podcast. You can subscribe to It Figures on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen to your podcasts. If you liked what you heard today, please leave us a review.